All right, welcome back to a new TouchDesigner tutorial. Finally, I'm back with new videos. I've been sick for a very long time, most of last year really. I've had post-COVID, and I'm finally kind of getting back to health. And yeah, I want to celebrate that with a new tutorial. We're gonna look at poster design in this one. I'm gonna give you quite a few examples using my designer talks that you can download in the link below for free on Patreon. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get started and dive into it. So as usual, I'm just gonna go ahead and delete everything. And then I'm gonna add a base component. And we're gonna call that poster one. And go to the comment page and change the operator viewer to bg, ./bg. Then we're gonna move in here. And as so often, we're gonna start with a noise top. All right, so on this noise top, I'm going to change my resolution to 1500 by 2000, but you're free to take any resolution that you like. I'm going to animate this. I'm going to type in ABS time.seconds times 0.2 as always. And then on my noise, I'm going to change a few parameters. Period 2, harmonic spread 2.5, and offset 0.6. And then we also don't want to have any harmonic gain. And that's about all we need to do here. I'm gonna add a lookup, and I'm just gonna sneakily copy and paste another component from the other project. So this is a component that you can download from Patreon, though not for free. And it's literally just for making like really quick and nice color palettes, and there with some extra features here. So definitely feel free to check that out. But you can use a ramp or any other technique here to create colors to use here, or input anything really. All right, so I'm just gonna add my designer talks from my palette. You don't have that in your palette yet probably, so you can just drag it from your browser, like your Explorer, and then you can save it here in your components for later use. I'm just gonna put this into the first input, and then the designer talks does absolutely nothing to it at first, but we have a lot of options to manipulate it and to add certain elements. We could change the resolution. Currently it just takes the original resolution, which is, as I said, 1500 by 2000. I'm fine with that, but we're gonna look at custom resolutions later on. What we could do here is create a grid. So I can turn on grid and then define the grid number, the grid rows, max columns, and all of that. So feel free to mess around with that. We might come back to that later. I'm gonna add a title now and call this fire, light and fire. It's just a random, made-up exhibition. I'm gonna change the font to Cascadia Mono Semi-Bold. If you don't have that, no worries, just use any other font. I'm gonna size it down, scale it down. I'm gonna add rotation of -90, and then we're moving to the left and down. All right, I think that's fine. Let us add another title and call that, like, just add a date here. All right, I'm going to turn off outline and again use that same font I just used and go down with the scale as well. Then I'm going to rotate it by 90, so the other way around, and then again position it on the canvas. So maybe like that, maybe a bit further to the right. That's looking good. And now what I want is a paragraph, so a bit more text. So what I can do is just go to my paragraph here, turn that on, and you can see a random text appears. So that text right now comes from in here, and that's because we have /paragraph1 written in here by default. So if we go in here, we can see we got paragraphs, paragraph 1, 2, and 3, as we also have 3 paragraphs here that we can add generally. So this is just random placeholder text written by ChatGPT actually. So FYI, that's a really good way to just add placeholder text. Let's go back here and position this nicely. So it should be aligned with both texts. So at the top, somewhere like there. Yeah, that should be good. And then maybe a bit to the left, something like that. Maybe a bit down. And then we have this thing called cut. So that's basically just defining the width of the text and including a word wrap. So you can see the text responds really nicely to how wide I want it to be. I think that works well. We might even want to make this a bit bigger. No, I think that's fine. All right, Let's add a logo to this. So I can go to external and turn external one on. And then I can just pick a file here. So I'm just going to use my logo. You can see it's way large. I'm going to scale it down to 0.1. And then again, let's position that on the canvas. Move it down here somewhere and maybe refine it a bit. And maybe a bit more to right, a bit more down. All right, and then the cool thing that we can do now, we have a few options here. So we can rotate it, we can change the opacity, blur, and we can invert it, which also looks kind of nice actually on this poster. But we also have this composite. So there's a few hand-picked pre-made composite modes that we can use that I think make sense. So in this case, I think the second one is actually the best because it just makes the whole logo white and that suits the whole poster really well. So we're done here with the first one. Let's just add a null and call that BG. As we have defined that here, we can now see it nicely displayed there. So again, we can go in here and we could add like a grid. So maybe 9 by like a 3 by 3, and then we can like change the margin here as well. We can rotate it around however we want. We can tile it again, so maybe repeat, and I think that looks really cool. Right, let's just copy and paste this and move to the second poster, for which we're gonna need a bit more of a network. I'm gonna just reset the custom parameters, and then we're gonna build the second network here. We're gonna start with a constant chop, and just add a null to this and call this seed. So that's what it's gonna be. Let's add a noise here and rescale that to 50 by 500 for the resolution. And we don't actually want to animate this. We just want to go down with the scale here on the X. So we have like horizontal lines. Let's go down with the exponent, maybe down with the period a bit. Something like that. And now what we're doing is just adding like this channel on the seed. And then we can add like plus me.digits. So what that does is connecting the master seed to the number that each operator has. So if I were to copy this now, you can see the seed here is 1, like because like 0 here, 1 here, and here it's 2, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to copy it once more, so 3 of these, and add a layout to the first one. And then we can add these other 2 in here as well, scale resolution, and we have them all nicely stacked next to each other. Looks kind of cool. So now we can just copy and paste the whole thing, select all noises, and go down with the period to like 0.2. So it's a bit of a different pattern. We can then just copy our last noise here, change resolution to 150, scale 1 here and 0.2 here, maybe period like 1, and then we can add a limit here and just quantize it. So we round it here, so it kind of looks like rectangular. I'm going to copy the first parameter, paste the reference on the second, and divide that by 2. So it's like nicely aligned on the grid. You can't see it that well here, but just trust me. You're going to see it later anyways. We're going to add another layout and add these 2. So I'm going to add this as a second and this as a third input. Again, scale resolution. And then we have this sort of texture coming out of it, which is a kind of weird resolution now, but it doesn't really matter. All right, I'm going to add a lookup to this. I want to add some colors, and then I'm going to use my quick color palette again from the other project and just pipe that in here. Again, you can just use a ramp or constants. So the cool thing now is that I can just convert colors to DATs very easily by just grabbing the output here. So it's really just doing top to chop and then chop to DAT. And that will be useful to define colors here as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just pipe that into the first input here. So I wanna change the resolution. So I'm gonna turn on custom resolution. And again, I'm gonna do 1500 by 2000. Then I wanna change the input scale here to 0.1 and repeat that. So it makes this really cool pattern where it just repeats our input. And then I'm gonna change the rotation to -24. And now you can see we got these weird kind of corners there. So I'm gonna add another transform before this, so sort of a pre-transform, and just scale it down by 0.2. So we can now nicely see that there's like space around. So let's go to titles and add a first title, which I'm going to call exposition. And I want this to be all caps, like capital letters. So I'm just going to turn that on and move down with the size to maybe like 0.05. Then I'm going to also rotate this by -24. And I'm going to move the position down. Yeah, I don't really need to change anything else. Like the X position is fine, which is actually kind of funny. X position, and then wow, oh my god, amazing. So I'm gonna Jesus, I'm gonna change the font color based on this table. So I'm gonna call this table color so I can nicely refer to it. And I want the second color, so the second row, or like row 1. So I'm gonna type in OP color and then 1 and 0. So row 1, column 0. And then we can do 0, 1 and 2 here. So we're grabbing all of these values, so we got the same color. There's probably other ways to do this as well, but like, this is just one way. All right, I want to add a second title. So I'm going to add that here. And again, all caps, actually outline on. And I want to have the same colors. I'm just going to copy this parameter and paste the expressions on the outline color. And then I want to change the size again to 0.05. So it's the same as exposition. Same with rotation, -24. And then let's just move that a bit to the right and fine tune it here on the Y. Cool. I'm also going to write in July 24, it's just a random date. And then let's add a paragraph. And in this case, I don't want to refer to any dat. I just want to write a sentence in here. So an amazing paragraph for a cool poster. And I want that to be center and rotated by -24 again. You might notice sometimes that the rotation is a bit weird. Yeah, but it's not that easy to work with transform and text in TD. But hey, I think it still works nicely. So let's move that a bit more to the center, like the felt center of that part up there. Let's again just paste the expressions in here. So we have the same color. Maybe make that a bit bigger and use some letter spacing to make it even more interesting. So I think that looks really good. So the next thing would be to go to output. We have a bunch of options on output. I just want to change the background color to this kind of green. And now if I don't like the colors like how generally, I might want to change the hue, and then I can just kind of go through different color schemes here. So this one actually looks really cool, but also like this original color I think looks quite nice. So just feel free to mess around with that. You've got saturation, brightness, and all that stuff. You can add some grain if you like. You can even add a border. So there's a few different options here to add a border. So if I were to just add a border like this, it's just kind of being put on like over everything else. So it actually hides parts of the image. So if you don't like that, you can resize the content. So actually there's no overlay, but the border kind of pushes from the outside in. You can see that nicely like this. But then obviously, because of the aspect ratio, it kind of gets like, the borders aren't the same anymore. So here, down here, they're more than here. So what you can do, especially if you only have a small border, you can aspect correct and distort it slightly. So now you can see the border is always the same, but the content kind of stretches. So yeah, you can obviously change the border color. So we could make it the same green if we like. But we can also just turn off the border and not use it at all. You can also anti-alias, and yeah, there's a few options. Cool, so I think we're done with the second poster. So we can now go ahead and work on the third one, which is going to be the most complex one. All right, so again, let's just move in here, delete all of this stuff, right click and reset custom parameters. What we want to do here is create a little feedback loop. But again, we're starting with a noise. I'm just going to set this to like 1080 by 1080. And now, again, we're going to change quite a bit of stuff about this noise. So first off, animation, ABS time.seconds times 0.2. And I'm going to just copy this because we're not going to need it soon again. And I'm going to change the period to 1.2, the harmonics to 4, harmonic spread to 1, harmonic gain to 0.5. We don't want this to be monochrome, and the exponent should be changed to 0.5 as well. There we go. So that's our basis for this. I'm going to add a limit, and we're just going to, again, rasterize this sort of, or, pixelate it, whatever that's called. Copy this parameter and paste the reference here, and then again, divide it by 2. So now you can really see how that fixes that kind of half pixel over there. So that looks much better. Let's add a null to this and add a feedback top from there. So we're starting our feedback loop. We're adding a keyboard in here. Connect that to the pulse. So we can reset our feedback loop by pressing 1 on our keyboard. I'm going to add a composite and change that to average, and let's add another noise. On this noise, I just want to output the noise. I'm only using the connection for the resolution. Paste in the time here, change it slightly, and now let's change a few things about this noise as well. So period 0.6, harmonic spread 1.5, and harmonic gain 0.3, and then exponent 0.5. And monochrome off. Let's put that into here. And from up here, I'm going to add a displace. And we're going to displace this strain up here by the second one. I'm going to add a blur to this, quite a strong one, maybe like 5 by 10. We can still change all of this later. It's just the starting point. So let's add a slope and change the strength to like 35, sample step to 2 and 2. And let's add a limit after that. So it's kind of the same thing. We might just want to copy this limit because we already have it. But I do want to change the position step here to 0.25 and then put that into here. So now we can put that back onto the feedback and it kind of goes berserk. It's mainly because of the displace weight. So let's go down 0.0 to 0.02. So that's already looking a bit better. Let's add an emboss here. Go up to 100 with the strength and then to like 0.3 with the midpoint. And then I'm going to add a level to this just so we're more in control of the outcome here if we need that. Then I'm going to add a lookup. And now I'm going to show you one other technique that I've used. So I'm just going to again copy and paste that from the other project. So I'm just going to get rid of that connection. So we got 3 movie files in here. And what I did here was actually kind of steal or get inspired from an album cover by getting inspired by stealing the colors and literally just screenshotting parts of the very sort of solid color album artwork. So you can just add all of them together in a layout, scale, resolution, and fill, and then you can put them into the lookup and you have those colors nicely in there. All right, so it kind of disintegrates over time. So and it tends to lose color over time as well. So what we can do for that part is add an HSV adjust and just very slightly go up to 1.12 on the saturation multiplier and maybe 1.002 on the value. So it just also makes it slightly brighter. We're working with very low change of values inside of feedback systems always, right? And we always kind of want to counter what's happening in there if there's a problem. So we can see it becomes this sort of solidy color thing. So it's not very interesting after some time as it is in the beginning. So what we could do is just add a sharpen from the palette. And to this day, I have no idea why the sharpen is in the palette. And you have blur and everything as a normal top. But yeah, talking of blur, we're going to add a blur here. Put that into the sharpen and then put that into here. So first off, let's go down to filter size to 2 and down with the dry wet mix here to like 0.95. So now you can see sort of there's more detail. But if I were to add if just to sharpen, you can see it just gets too much detail. So again, I'm just adding something to kind of counter that to put like a balancing weight on the other side, And this way it doesn't really disintegrate and it still stays interesting over time. So with these colors, that already looks really cool. So I'm going to put that into the first input here. And as this is 1080 by 1080, I don't like that resolution. I'm going to just change the resolution to maybe 1500 by 2000, so that's way large. And now you can see we got this black background around it. I'm going to input scale it down by 0.1 and then go up by 0.125. So that fits really nicely at the sort of top here, and we have some space at the bottom. And now what I would like to do is have this color as a background. This time I'm going to work in a different way than before, and I could also go to output and just set the background color to the same as we have here, right? But what I could also do is just put that into the second input. So if we go to second input, by default, you can see it's grayed out and it says disconnected because there's no input that's connected. So if I reconnect that, you can now see that's on there. I'm going to turn on off swap inputs, change this to fill, and then scale it up a bit. So we're like completely filling the screen with this orange color. And that works really nicely, I think. Cool. You have a bunch of other compositing modes that you can use here. So definitely feel free to just experiment with this. But for this example, we're just going to go that far. All right. So now to the slightly tedious part of adding titles. I'm just going to write in here harmony and motion for whatever reason. And then just go down with the scale to like that. Let's do justify left and then move it a bit to the right. So it's kind of aligning with the right there. We can move it down. It should be more aligned. There we go. Something like that. And then we can change the font color here to like 0.1 on all three colors. So it's kind of a grayish black. I also want to change the letter spacing to be a bit more close to each other. Maybe something like that. And then let's add a paragraph. And I'm just going to go with paragraph 3. It's like in its solitary beauty, this flower becomes a quiet reminder that, yeah. Let's just change the font color to the same thing and move down to there and move to the right. So it's kind of aligned with everything. Yeah, it should be fine. And then again, we can use this cut to make it kind of as wide as that title. Before we move on and add some more stuff, I want to add shapes to make the whole thing a bit more interesting. So we can go to shapes and just turn on the first shape, and that's just a straight up rectangle. We can change its shape by moving up and down here, so we can move between rectangle and a circle. We can turn off uniform scale. So if I have that turned on, well, I only have one slider to change the scale. I kind of want it disproportionate though. I just want to have it very wide, and then maybe something like that, and then move it up to maybe there. Okay, that looks great, right? I mean, we also have some other options here. For example, the composite again. So I'm going to set that to composite mode 3, which is actually just difference. And I think in this case, that looks really cool and makes the whole thing more dynamic. So we can just do a similar thing, or exactly the same thing. Again, just position it differently. So I'm going to move down there, somewhere there, and then just scale it like this. Now again, we can go to composite mode and composite it with all the other stuff using difference. And I think that looks quite interesting now. So again, we can go back to paragraphs, and I'm just going to add the second paragraph, which I know is some dates and the location. I'm going to set that to justify right, position maybe a bit to the left, and then move that down. And then also what we want to do is cut it to something like this. Make it even smaller maybe. And then, yeah, I think that's fine. Let's position it nicely, being aligned with the other thing. There you go. And now, again, same color. It's kind of grayish black. And then I'm going to add my logo again. Very small, to the right, down, even smaller. And just move it a bit to the right. And now we can change that composite mode thing to this. That's also different. And I think that looks pretty nice for this poster. All right, so I think we're done with the second one. You feel free to really mess around with this. I'm not going to go deeply into that at all, as you can see. But yeah, just feel free to mess around. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And we're going to move to the last but not least poster. So again, I'm going to delete all of this. Right click and reset custom parse. And for this, I'm just going to add another noise to 1500 by, not 15, God, 1500 by 2000. Again, animate this. Do I still have that? Yeah. So just paste that expression in here. Okay, and then period 4, harmonics 4, harmonic spread 4, and then harmonic gain 0.15, exponent 0.5, and that's it. So let's move that in here into the first input. Go to input and create a grid. So yeah, 3 by 3 will do. Just gonna scale it down like 0.7 and translate it by minus 0.2. Okay, I don't want to have a black background, so I'm gonna go to output and just type in 1, 0.2, and 0.2, so we have this kind of nice intense but not too intense red. Then I'm gonna go to Geo Text and explain what that does. So if we move in here and look for Geo Text, we can actually see that we're just doing like 3D rendering here with the Geo Text component. So actually what this is based on, it creates text based on instancing. So currently that's just based on a grid. We can use whatever input that we like though. So you can either define that in here, or if we go back and turn on GeoText, we can see that's being displayed here based on a grid. And we can also click on open instance parse, and then we can define our instancing network here. So if just as an example, we can do like a rectangle and then just put that on here. And now you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but it's based on the rectangle's positions now. So I'm just gonna undo that, but feel free to really mess around with that. We can change the font here, so I'm just gonna go to PP editorial new, it's called. Yeah, there we go. But again, change it to any font that you like, and I'm gonna write in fantasize because I stole this whole cover. I like a poster idea from a cover, and that's called that way. I'm just gonna go with straight up black here, skew it slightly to the back. You can also change the letter spacing if you like. Yeah, there's a few things. You can like translate it in 3D space. You can rotate it in 3D space. I'm not really gonna get into that. You can just mess around with it. You can also composite it differently. So I think that also looks kind of cool. Maybe add some grain here. We can add a movie file in. We could add like a video here and just put that in here. So now that takes the resolution that we had here. So what we could do in this case is either switch resolution and not adapt the content, or so like switch orientation, I mean, or we can just define our own. So again, that could be 1500 by 2000. And now we could also do like, fit outside, and then that would fit into the same kind of grid, just with a video now. So yeah, thank you for watching. And I also at this point really, really want to say thank you to everybody who supported me through this very, very difficult last year. So I'm so amazed by this lovely community, all the heartfelt, warming, beautiful messages that I received, and obviously also the financial support that kind of got me through this time. So yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all very, very much. And I'm very happy that I can now work on videos again and share content with you and be in touch with all of you. So hope to see you around, and hope you're well, and see you in the next one.